Okay, so now let's start from a fresh scene. So first of all, we'll make a canvas. So let's start with the UI that has a fixed background. I'm using 1024 by 1024 as my sort of background resolution. Now what's neat about that being a square is if I'm going to deal with landscape or portrait modes, then that should work either way. And the idea is that that'll be my boundary, so I'll put all my UI elements within that. So now if I do an image, just so you know, an image in a panel is basically the same thing, it just has slightly different defaults. With an image though, it defaults to being in the center. So now from here I have this gradient, this background gradient here, so that demonstrates the idea. Its native resolution is 1024 by 1024, and we can see that the gradient is sort of represented here, and it shouldn't have too many sort of scaling artifacts. Okay, now notice this blue background here, that's actually coming from the main camera. So I have a couple of choices. I can change the main camera color. I can do this, for instance, and that's reasonable. Or another way of making a sort of a default is to create a panel which will stretch to the size of the canvas. If I put that before the image, so the image is actually our background, fixed size, so it's actually fixed size, that'll do. So what we can do here is I could use this instead. So if I want to make like some sort of deep red, just get rid of the transparency, then that's how we can change this color, maybe a bit darker. Yeah. Okay, so, and if you want to see what different resolutions look like, you can add a new resolution here and have say big, just under the G, let's call it I don't know, 2144 times 2000, just making up a resolution here. Okay, go away, there we are. So we can see that our 1024 by 1024 background box it's always centered, which means whatever extra will just be on the outside there. Okay, now let's, in our panel, back to the scene view, we can put any widgets in here. So if we want to create a heading's pretty reasonable. Okay, so this is where we might use, well again, it doesn't really matter, so we'll use a panel. I'm going to have it stretch across the top, so here I can make it stretch across the top, stretch across the left side. Actually, it doesn't matter, I'm not going to worry about that now. I'm just wondering, is that stretch across, just stretch vertically maybe. Anyway, let's stretch across the top. Hey. Why? Okay, that's interesting. It won't let me do it. But never mind. So the way to make this happen is 0101 here, and make that 1 that should stretch across the top. Okay, so now, yes, you can see the anchor points are across the top and they're the full width of the canvas, which means it will stretch. And if I just change the pivot, notice the pivot point here is in the center right now because of 0.5. If I make it 1, then the pivot is at the top, which means now if I want to have 40 pixels from the top, then minus 40, and that's shifted it down by 40 pixels. And then if I do 40 pixels like that, 40 pixels left and right, and say 200 pixels tall, we have ourselves a nice heading panel, which is inset. It'll be 200 pixels tall, and we have a nice sort of control. Now we can take our background, so I have these border grey. If I go back to Affinity Designer, it's this grey here. So we've got a very light grey in the center, and we have a sort of a grey on the outside. If we use that, oh hang on, where's our border? Our panel. If I drag this into here, no, okay, so it's too rounded. That's why I made this change. Hold on, I haven't exported it. That's what's happening. Let's export this. Export to replace that one. Yes, replace it. And if we go back over here, let's just make sure I'll go to the sprite editor and okay, that's a bit too much. So what we need to do here with this 9-tile slice or 9-slice sprite, we just need the slices to be at the point where the curvature begins. So here it'll be consistent, which means that'll stretch perfectly in the vertical, and this one, if we bring that in, say to around there, this will stretch perfectly in the horizontal. See how this is consistent the whole way through. That's what we're looking for. Whereas here, if I were to do this, that's not consistent. So when this gets stretched horizontally, those artifacts will get distorted, and it will look bad. So let's avoid bad. So if I make this say 40, go back, 40, then that gives me, you know, a slightly conservative, regular pattern. These corners will be consistent size. Hit apply, and then close that window. And now just make sure, where are we? Okay, that I shouldn't have to drag it in there, but I'm going to anyway. Fits and giggles. Right, so there we are. We have our heading. Now it's got a bit of transparency, which is the default. So we can kind of dial that out, and we can set a color. If we want to try a green, a bit gross. This is probably a bit too dark. It's okay actually, but yeah. If it were just a little bit lighter, it would probably, in fact, let's do it. For a bit lighter, it would probably not look as kind of overdone. We'll save this in a slightly different name. So I'll select this, but call it V2. Regraves-V2. And we'll try that one. V2, I'm going to have to splice it, but it'll be the same size, so 40, 40, 40, 40, apply, and the V2, let's, blah blah, to select this first. Now drag that into here, and it doesn't look as bad. So when that is, that grey is a bit, the contrast is too strong, it just looks a bit, I don't know, cliched, or it just looks a bit weird. Okay, so so for instance, let's try, you know, the blue can look okay. It's interesting how blue and orange doesn't look as bad as you would think. It's not amazing, but it's not as bad. Just looks like shades of pastel. Anyway, designers can comment. Those of you in the audience who are designers can tell me whether you like this or not. But just to demonstrate, let's use this. So this is our heading box. Inside here we can put Text Mesh Pro. So by default it's going to be centered, but it'll also be constrained in size. Let's not do that. Let's stretch to the boundaries of the box, but inset it by 20. I'm choosing 20 because that's about half of what the inset is, and so that way it'll look maybe not too bad, although actually it could be even better. Just noting how the end tucks maybe a bit too close to the edge. Alright, so maybe that wasn't enough. Let's give it 30 then. As an inset. Yep, that's better. Now the other thing we can do is center it horizontally and now vertically, and we can make it auto size. So there we are. So for a heading, that's pretty reasonable. Now we can make maybe a slightly less, like a weaker colored panel by taking this box, Control D to duplicate it, and if we sort of, I'll come back, make it a bit slightly lighter pastel color, and let's change this to be, so we have 40 at the top, 200 deep, and maybe another 40, so let's bring that down by minus, say, 280, and we can, in fact, maybe a little bit more washed out, just to make it look like, in fact, with a bit of grey in it. Yep. So, and make it taller. So this is almost 300 here, this is 1024, so around 740 will give us a decent size, a bit too big, maybe 710, there, not 7100. That should give us about 30 pixels at the bottom. And anyway, that's fine, that works. And now we can get rid of this inner text, doesn't help us. And what we can do instead is, actually tell you what, just thinking that white on light blue, let's see if a dark grey is better. No. Alright, we'll stick with white there, that's fine. Okay, so down here, this is going to be our, instead of heading, this will be entry box. This is where the main interaction happens. Okay, so in here we can have, now it's up to you whether you really want to have this. Actually, when you think about it, it's hiding all the lovely gradient, so what's the point of doing that? Let's get rid of that. Better idea yet. Instead, let's just have, we'll have a text and we'll have a button. That makes more sense now that I think about it. So we'll just set up, let's say we wanted to have text and buttons as a standard kind of set of interactions. We might even make a panel to group them in, so this might be, so this could be different choices we can select, and I'm only going to use the panel as a grouping construct. So let's say, so if this is the main menu, you might have settings, you might have avatar choice, something like this. So let's say settings panel, something like this. Now, for instance, so let's make this from the bottom, bottom stretched across the bottom. Let's make it 720 tall. No, not that tall. Let's make it 140 tall. Okay. And in terms of position, it's from the bottom, so from 0 point. Really? It's better. Okay, so text will be on the left. So there's a few different ways we can do this. We can, something I tend to like doing is from, in terms of X, so 0 to 0.5 means that the text, which is like a label, will occupy the left side, and the button 0.5 to 1 will occupy the right side. If we make this let's say we go with 40, just to keep things kind of consistent. Then we can see how things pan out. So you can see you've got your label here, your button there. Okay, now let's make the height something like 90, which we can drive to be consistent, and center auto size, and our button, we'll make that 90 as well, and the text inside here should be, yep, center, and auto size, please. Okay, it's starting to look better. Now, whether we want this panel to have any shading or not is completely up to us. We can dial that all the way down, and it shows us the gradient. Okay, so I'm really just trying to get the idea out here. It's probably a horrible example, but you can see how we're making use of the gradient. We're living within our boundary of 1024 by 1024, and that gives us, the sort of artwork. Now, instead of being a gradient, it could be, a picture of a character or something like that you have in the background, maybe slightly ghosted out or softened. Some sort of brand image, whatever. Anything, any reason that you would have artwork in the background. This is the trade-off we're making. Thanks for watching. If you liked it, give us the old thumbs up. If you want to give me some feedback, if I went too fast or anything like that, let me know. Thanks for watching.